Hey guys, Jim Trevor here. So today we're going to be talking about how to maintain a flat back on your deadlifts. Now, when I talk about maintaining a flat back on your deadlifts, I'm talking about how to combat a flexed deadlift back position. And what I mean by that is you see a lot of lifters when they perform the deadlift, they come down into that bottom position, and as they perform the movement, they're performing with a flexed back. And so the problem with performing the deadlift with the flex back is that it's going to create a lot of stress that's going to be placed on your erector spinae muscles, even on your spine. So that's why when we perform these deadlifts, we don't want our lumbar to be in an extended position, nor do we want we want it to be in a flex position. Now, there are circumstances where there may be upper back rounding. That's for you see that less common in maybe your average gym guy. It's more of a more advanced technique where you use upper back rounding in order to lengthen your lever arms. But because that rounded position is maintained throughout the lift, then that's usually not a problem. The problem is when you start off in a flat back position, but then you go into a flex position, especially in your lower back, where you start flat, but then as you perform the lift, more and more of the stress is being taken over by the back, and your back goes into a flex position. That's where the problem is. Now, the number one, well, not the number one, but a lot of the times where there is a very simple fix to creating a flat back, because I see a lot of lifters, it's with their flex back, it's not because of a weakness, it's not because of a cue they're lacking, it's simply they haven't reset after each rep. Their first rep, you see a lot of times, their first rep they'll perform it with no problems at all, because they've taken their time to set up, they've put themselves into a flat position, they've cued themselves in, they perform the movement, no problem, but then as they drop the barbell, they're at that bottom position, they've dropped it into a flex position, and because it's not the first rep, they haven't taken the time to reset, and they're trying to pull straight away. So that's actually the first thing that I would advise you to take a look at is whether you're resetting after each rep. And how you can explore whether this is your problem is compare your first and second rep. If the first rep you've created a great flat back, you've created tightness, and you performed the movement with a very strong packed flat back, but then all of a sudden during subsequent reps, you see that you haven't taken the time to reset, and then that's where the problem comes in. You're pulling from a flex position, then it's highly likely that you need to reset your back after each repetition. Now, the second cue I want to talk about to creating a flat back and to preventing flexion of your lumbar during the deadlift is your slack pull and your wedge. Now, I've made a lot of videos on this already, but it's such an important aspect, the slack pull and the wedge, because I won't go too in depth into it because I have made other videos on it. But when you apply pressure into your midfoot, it automatically flattens out your back. And now, what I mean by that, I'll demonstrate. Say I'm in a flex back position right now. When I apply pressure into my midfoot, you'll see my arms will lengthen, because that's me straightening out my body. And the same thing will happen to my back. If I just force myself to be in a curved back position for effect, when I apply pressure into the ground and take slack out, you'll see that my back will flatten itself out, because you've applied pressure in. And when you apply pressure through the middle, you're essentially forcing your back up into a flat position. Now that's the second fix. Now the third thing I want to talk about is your head position. When you've got your head looking down in that direction, more naturally, because your torso is going to follow where your head's looking, that's going to cause a flex back position like so. Setting up into my deadlift, I've got my head down. The further down I look for effect, the more flexed my back will become. As I raise my head up, you'll see that will flatten my back out and straighten out my chest. My chest will come up, my back will flatten out, and vice versa. Flexed head position means a flat back. As I extend my head up, my back will flatten out. So to summarize what we've gone over today, the 3 fixes or the 3 steps I'd advise taking in order to treat a flex back in that deadlift position will be: number 1, to reset after each rep. Now, if that's not a problem that you're having, then you don't have to worry about that fix. But I would highly recommend that you take a look at your resetting position. Take a look at how you are between reps, especially if you're doing touch and go deadlifts. A lot of the time you don't have the time, you're not taking the time to reset after each rep, and that's why the more touch and go reps you do, where you're bouncing the barbell off the floor, the more flex your back will become. Now the second thing that we went over, that slack pull and wedging in, applying pressure into midfoot will help flatten out your back. And the third thing is head position. I would advise to look straight directly ahead, and that will flatten out your back, but also play around with it. If for some reason you feel more comfortable, you're in a flat back position with the head down, that's not a problem. If you need to go in the opposite direction and look up even slightly to force yourself to flatten out that back, that's not a problem at all. It's all about finding what cues work for you. So that's all from me today guys. Hopefully that was helpful, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.